Here's a 4-cylinder engine that's been sitting on my workbench for a few years, and I decided that I'm going to part with it because I have a hit-miss engine project that I'm looking to get right now. And in usual fashion for me, I've got to sell one thing to get something else. So what I'm going to do here is attempt to get this one started, but I'm going to sell it running or not. And the purpose of this video here is to show you what I've done so far. When I originally purchased this, it really had no compression. And the reason it had no compression is somebody made these steel pistons. I can't imagine steel pistons. And they were clean on the top, so it didn't run for somebody else either. But they had these steel pistons in the steel sleeves, and they fit rather loose, and as a result there was no compression. So I got a hold of the aluminum pistons for this engine, and I made the rings myself. They're all heat treated and made according to the instructions. And what I'm doing right now is I've been lapping. I've been using the electric drill here, and I've been spinning this over, and I'm lapping in the rings. I refinished the cylinders. I did put a nice crosshatch pattern in there, and let me stick the drill on here. And I've been spinning it over. Going to do this for about an hour or so, with a lot of oil in there to lap in and break the surface on the rings. So this should give it some decent compression now, since it's got brand new rings in it. And I set up the spark timing, marking the flywheel here, if you can see it, with a marker for the cylinders number 2 and 4 top dead center, and cylinders number 1 and 3 top dead center. So I set up the spark timing to fire right on top dead center. I did have the whole crankcase apart to inspect the crankshaft, and everything looks good. I had the crankshaft out, I inspected the rods, all the clearances are good there. Along with the engine, I got a full set of drawings. There's a complete set of blueprints here. I mean, this took somebody a ton of time to make. Every part on this thing, except for things like the Allen hardware, had to be made. Just looking through the blueprints here, it's nuts on all the parts that had to be made. I know how much time I spent just making the piston rings. And I had to make a bunch of extra piston rings because, well, as long as I was making them, I made a bunch of them, because even though they were heat treated, it's tough to get them on without snapping them. So I did snap a few of the rings, putting them on. So there's the plans that come with this. There's a photo CD that shows you each part as it's made, and I believe there's a PDF file on here as well that has all these drawings, because I believe I did print these out, but I've had this for a few years, and I don't remember if I got it that way or if I printed them out. This is what the cylinder heads look like off the engine. Checked out the valves, they're sealing up nice. There's a coil mounted underneath this display box. As you can see, the coil. And that was just that steel piston that I had that I rolled off of here. I actually took one of the steel pistons and I made a tapered, let me get it here, made a tapered tool out of it for getting the rings onto the aluminum pistons. I don't know why anybody would want to make steel pistons. These things are heavy, and like I say, there's no rings on them, and there was no compression. So I don't know what the idea was behind that. Somebody's idea. So that's where I'm at right now with this. Just thought I'd take a video while I had it apart give the next owner some information. And I'm going to keep lapping in the rings here. I stick my finger over the cylinder. It's definitely going to have compression now, so I suspect it's going to run. But even if I can't get it to fire, I'm going to put it on eBay and give it a whirl and see what happens with it, and let the next owner play around with it. I'll have all the pictures, and I'll post another video if I get it running. Like I said, I'm probably going to part with it even if I don't get it running. But it's mechanically sound, everything's built real nice, and I see no reason why it shouldn't fire. So we'll see what happens. Thanks for watching. Something I forgot to mention in that video that I just made, and this would be information in case the next owner would want to take this apart, do any work to it. These cylinders are all numbered. The number's upside down here, but you can see the 4, number 3. Same on the other side with your 1 and your 2. On the bottom fin of the cylinder jugs, there's also a corresponding number on there. Because the way this works is, to get the heads on, these have to be perfectly square to each other. In other words, when somebody made this, they screwed these in and tightened them up, and then they drilled and tapped so that they line up exactly with the hole on the corresponding head. If you'd mix these up, these aren't going to line up, and you're not going to be able to get the heads on. You're not going to be able to tighten these up. In fact, when I got it, these were all mixed up, and they were loose, and the heads were on loosely, and basically because they didn't have the cylinders in the right place. So that's very important when if you want to take this apart. And even the pistons are numbered. Pistons have numbers stamped on the top because they're fitted for each cylinder. And you got to get a straight edge on there and make sure this is all squared up. Like I said, you can imagine that if they were taken off and screwed in another location, there's no way you're going to get these to line back up again. They have to be just right. And according to the instructions, no head gaskets are needed. So I probably might put just a real thin brush with my finger, because it looks like somebody had something on here. I tried to clean this off with lacquer thinner, but there's a little residue around the outside. And show you the plugs that it uses. These are really cool. I love the little spark plugs, little NGK plugs. So that's it. There's some important information for you, just in case you want to take it apart. Make sure the head bolts are all squared up, and the cylinders and the pistons are in the right location. Thanks again. Here's an update on the 4-cylinder engine I've been working on when I have time permitting. I still haven't gotten it to run. Compression seems good. I've worked a lot on it, setting up the there's my timing tape that I made, getting the valve set up, getting the timing set up. I have the timing so that it fires a spark. I'd say maybe like 5 degrees before top dead center, and I've tried it at top dead center, and I just haven't had any luck. For running it here in my workshop, I made this intake manifold for it that I'm going to include along with this engine, because I think I'm going to sell it right now. I have another project that I need to really be working on. Somebody's waiting for me to do a restoration on a Bryce Olds hit-miss engine. I really need to get started in that. And this one just keeps sucking up my attention because I'd really like to have it run before I sell it, but I don't think that's going to happen here, and I'll explain why. But I'll include this along in the sale. This is just simply hooked up to my mini torch. I worked as a jeweler for many years, and my torch is hooked up to a propane cylinder. I use either propane or acetylene with my torch. So this made a handy little setup here I could spin it over with one hand and open up the propane, and it would get to the point where it's almost running, where I pull the drill away and it runs for a little bit, and then it's just not enough to keep it going. So I started looking into the ignition on this thing really good, and what I'm finding is that I'm probably getting, it seems like I'm getting a lot of cross-firing in this distributor, because when I check just the coil wire off of here, I'm getting a good constant spark. So points are good, coil's good, everything's good there. But on the output here for each individual plug, I'm not getting a consistent spark. So that's why it's firing every once in a while. It's almost running and then it doesn't run. So for the next owner, might want to make another, I don't know exactly what this material is here that the distributor's made out of. Other motors like this I've seen, they're made out of a clear plastic. I don't know if it's a plexiglass type plastic or what it is, but making distributors, I can make some rings and make some parts, but I'm not going to get involved with the electronics here or the distributor. But for the next owner, this is something you need to look into. This will include full plans with it, so you can tinker around with that part of it. Everything else is set up. Like I said, I made a degree wheel out of some tape here. I will be taking that off. Maybe I'll stick this on some paper or something and include it along with it. But you can print out, I printed out on the internet a degree wheel so I could mark things on here to see what's what. I have the timing set, if I didn't say that already. I have the timing set for about 5 degrees advanced right now. And let me show you how I determined that it must be cross-firing here. Hook up a 12 volt, I have a 12 volt gel cell. The plugs are grounded. These are to the engine ground. And this is from an RC airplane. I'm not including that, that's my RC airplane starter there. And that fits perfectly on this hub. Hold that there. There we go. So let me show you what I'm getting on the spark here. So as you can see, the spark is not constant, and that's the way it seems to be firing for me. It's like it wants to go, and you think it's going to start running, and it doesn't. And I'm just not getting a constant spark here. And my suggestion would be for somebody to play around with the distributor. But I'm probably just going to sell it this way and let somebody else do some tinkering with it. I'll include this along with it. This was a tool from an old piston I made. This was to put on the slide to expand the piston rings to get them on the pistons. And I had to make a few extra rings. Fortunately, I made some extra rings because they're really tricky to get on, and I broke a few. But it does have new rings on it now. Compression seems good. Valve timing is set where it should, and the ignition timing is set where it should. So that's where I'm at. If you have any questions, please ask. I'll post my email address down below if you have any other questions. like I said, I've spent a bunch of time on this. It's a really nice looking engine. I don't see why, well, I do see why it's not running, because of the spark. But I think I'm going to let it go the way it is. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. Hey, thanks for watching. I'm bound and determined to hear this thing run before I sell it, and I really want to have it running for somebody when they purchase it. And I just found out something very interesting about the ignition. I did show in another video that I made that I was not getting a nice steady spark. So I decided to play around with this thing again today, and here is what I found. I'm going to turn the light out here so you can see the spark better. I have the power hooked up. I have the top of the distributor off, and this clip here is connected to the line that comes off the coil. Now my spark plug leads right now are not grounded. They're just out touching nothing. So there's no ground on the cap right now, just the wire coming off of the coil. So what happens when I spin it over right now, and I have a wire here from the coil set up so you can see the spark. I'm getting a nice steady spark that doesn't miss a beat. Now, when checking out the different wires, I have a ground clip here. When I put the ground clip on this wire, now actually, unless there isn't a short here, it shouldn't change anything. But what happens is, I'm getting arcing all over the place on the top of the cap just by hooking up a ground here. So something's up with that guy, and that's what I'm going to look into next. That's why the spark plug wasn't firing normally like it should. You know, in every revolution, I just got a spark every once in a while. We've got some sort of short going on the top of the distributor cap. So I'm going to check that out, and I'll let you know what I find. Well, I was clearing out the videos in my iPhone today to try and make some more room, and I ran across the videos I made on this 4-cylinder engine that I kind of gave up on at the time because of the other projects I was working on, and I realized, you know, that was 2 years ago that I said I was going to sell it and move on to my next project. And trust me, I'm not bullshitting you there. I have a lot of hit-miss engine projects I've gotten involved in. This is the current one I'm working on, and this is a pile of engines ago since I made those last videos. There's a Bryce hit and miss that I have all the paintwork done and built the stand for it. I have Associated sitting up there that needs to be built. I have another Bryce engine. Great mechanical shape, but this is kind of the way I find them sometimes, and it just doesn't look as pretty as this one. And my other shelves across the room have about 6 other hit-miss engines sitting, so I get busy with those and exchanging a lot of emails with people, and I have a bit of a following. People who like my work on those restorations, and the poor 4-cylinder just sits. What I found here, let's see if we can see this. Anybody who knows sees right away on this distributor cap what was happening to my spark. I would call that it's either carbon tracking or the cap is actually etched from the arcing I was getting from, now this is the top of the cap, there's the inside, there's no arcing on the inside from the rotor side, that was good, but on the top of the cap, and then there were other screw post sticking out here, you can see where it was arcing. And that's why I almost had it running, but it seemed like it kept cutting out. And I just never got around to making another cap for it. There is a mark. There are marks on here that line this back up again. And there's your coil wire coming up from the bottom that goes on there. Spark plug wires. I stuck the plugs back in. And I put the carburetors back on. But anyway, yep, just never got around to it. I don't know what material this is made out of. I've even since then gotten into 3D printing and 3D scanning. You might possibly, the one scanner I have for sale is, you'll find it one of my other eBay listings. So I've gotten into other stuff. It's sitting. Time to pass it on. Let somebody else enjoy it. I sure like even just looking at it. Points down there, and it's so close to running right now. So I'll tell you what we got here. I put these in line here. These are one-way valves. They will allow the fuel to come up out of the tank. I use these a lot on my hit-miss engines. Fuel's going to come up out of the tank and go to your carburetor, and it's not going to allow the fuel to flow, you know, to siphon back down into the tank. And I noticed that right away the first time I tried starting this with these lines. I could see as soon as I spun it over, I could see the fuel come up, especially if I choked it a little bit. And then as soon as it stopped, I could see the fuel siphon right back down into the tank. So, one-way flow valves are on there. For shipping, I'm going to be taking off the carburetors. I have these on for just for pictures here. I'll take the linkage off here. There are little Allen screws, really small Allen screws that hold this pin in here, and I have that just put on there for photos. I'm going to leave my masking tape on here with the timing marks. If you look straight down here, there we go, there's top dead center. I put the cover back on here for the cam for shipping. I'm going to put some, since these valves could actually move and the push rods could fall out, each push rod is a little bit different length, so they're in the right spot. So I'll probably put some of this green type masking tape over here to hold those in position for shipping. I'm going to include, this is the little setup I made to try and get it to fire inside here, where I show in the one video that I used propane to try and run it. There's no butterfly or anything in here, but you could make something out of this to run it on propane. And this fits right down in there where the gas carburetors are. Extra hardware. These stupid pistons. There's the plug wires. Some extra stainless steel hardware. A beer for me to admit defeat on the engine. Now this is actually here for the photo to show. I put a can, like a 12-ounce can, and a photo to show scale, so you can tell how big it is. And I'll have all the measurements in the ad. So that appears to be the problem. Make another distributor cap. I don't know what this stuff is. Almost reminds me of Bakelite. Remember Bakelite? They'd make old switches and old electronics out of Bakelite. But that's the problem there. Plug wires are marked for each cylinder. And I think my videos cover everything else. So it's time to take pictures, get this guy on eBay. Hopefully I can string all these videos I have on this together in one video. That would be great, but I think YouTube only allows me like 15 minutes, so maybe I can couple them together, but sorry for it possibly being part 1, part 2, part 3, and probably a part 4 here. You can email me directly. I can do better in a sale directly with me, other than paying the ridiculous and ever-increasing eBay fees, which is driving me nuts. And of course there's PayPal fees as well, but you can send money through PayPal. There are ways to do it through friends and family without having to pay any fees. So You could email me directly at joekind, JOEKIND, and that is at, the at symbol, Comcast, COMCAST.net, NET. And you can email me directly, make me an offer. I can do better on the price off of eBay because I'm not paying those fees. And thanks for watching my series here of videos on this engine that so far has not run. Take care. Have a good day.